Fourth agenda item, which is the Coastal Hazards Strategy, an update from the joint committee meeting held in May, and we have Dean Moriarty here to speak to us today.
This is just a covering report, keeping council informed as to the what's happening with the Coastal Hazard Strategy. There's a joint committee formed representing 3 councils, Napier, Hastings and Regional Council, with iwi involvement as well. And it's just a quick covering report, but I'll just point out the fact that the Coastal Hazard Strategy was initiated in 2014. What that means is this will be the 3rd council that's dealing with this issue, and it has got stuck a little bit in the previous councils trying to get some sort of agreement. And the reason for that is it's a really difficult, complex issue involving quite considerable sums of money spread over long term. And there are some big decisions to be made around it, including solutions around private versus public benefits, who pays, who collects and administers any contributory fund, who's rated and who collects that money. The Hawke's Bay Regional Council's preferred approach to the funding component was the fact that the fund should be broadened in scope beyond just coastal hazards and deal with climate change. And all partner councils should contribute, and the funds that were collected should not be used for construction. So in that sense, they should only be used for funding upfront, engineering, design, consenting and analysis, not construction. So that's where the Hawke's Bay Regional Council ended up. There was a recent meeting held in the midst of the COVID pandemic. But the good news from that meeting was there seemed to be a newfound desire to try and sort of get some sort of resolution and get some movement going into this funding approaches and where we're at, and to try and get some sort of resolution so we can actually move forward. There's a report coming through soon. These are all first drafts, but as a managed retreat, what it means in practice, so you can compare to a sort of a baseline scenario of a mitigation option versus the concept of managed retreat. There's moved to try and get signals and triggers, which is sort of lead into actually implementing a solution. And that's involving re-establishing community panels to try and sort of work with them to the appropriate signals and triggers that would be in place to actually say, right, we've got enough concern now, we've got the science of the concern behind us that we would actually like to push on to implementation. And then the old chestnut of funding as well. So, well, there is something, the local government New Zealand remit being proposed by the Hauraki District Council. I don't know if they've had contact with you yet, Mayor or Chief Executive, but they're looking to get some support to promote a proposed remit that reads that central government undertakes a comprehensive review of the current law relating to natural hazards and climate change adaptation along New Zealand's coastlines, and coordinates the development of a coastline strategy for the whole of New Zealand, which would cover the roles and responsibilities of territorial and regional councils, greater direction on an integrated approach, and development principles for who pays. So I guess with our experience within the region as to how we've got through on and the issues we've had up, that seems a very appropriate remit to support. So I'd recommend the council consider doing that. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dean, and that's the first I've heard of that remit from Hauraki, so thank you for sharing that with us. We will await further details on it. Is there any questions from councillors? Deputy Brosnan.
Dean, that meeting that we talked about coordinating, or the workshop we all talked about in this meeting of coordinating to finalise the first, I think there's almost two steps to it. First, Napier City needs to finalise our position on funding from Napier, and then secondly, we need to get together as a group of councils and thrash that out. So have we booked either of those workshops to your knowledge?
No, but I'd imagine it's going to be booked, sorry, through you there, booked very soon because we're moving to level 1, or it would appear we're going to move to level 1 very near future. So, and even if we don't, level 2 would allow us to have those sort of meetings anyway. So I'm expecting that meeting to be convened, but you're quite right. It is a case that Napier City Council has to get together and sort of try and get its position clearly established. It's a complex issue. There's multiple people involved in TAG. So John Kingsford's sort of in charge of the engineering side and Caroline Thompson the financing side. So it is a complex issue, but Napier City Council has to reconfirm its position or change its position or decide on what position it wants to follow in that, and then same with all the other councils, and then the councils get together at this meeting before the next joint committee, and then the joint committee members would be sort of promoting and advocating for that council position through the next joint committee meeting.
Through you, Your Worship, I wouldn't mind that sitting as an action item with governance. I think as soon as we can get together as a group and discuss our position, the better, being that we then need to hold it with all three councils, and then our meeting on the 7th of August, so I think that time will disappear. So.
There's no one else wishing to speak to the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Again, carried unanimously.